Hi, I'm Bodie Pendus, and I want to build a piece of furniture. Well, I'll take that back. I want to design and build a piece of furniture, but I don't really know much about design. So I did some research, I looked up how to design stuff, and I came across some things that I really didn't know before about designing furniture. It's called the golden ratio. So a lot of people have used the golden ratio. Matter of fact, most people would understand that the golden ratio is really a derivative of the Fibonacci numbers. Who's Fibonacci? This is Leonardo Pisano. Actually, his nickname is Fibonacci. But in 1202, he introduced the Fibonacci sequence to the world. He's not the one who discovered or created the Fibonacci sequence, because the golden ratio had been used long before 1200. Matter of fact, it was used to build the Parthenon in 440 BC. It was used to design the ceiling of Sistine Chapel. In 120 BC in Rome, it was used to design the Pantheon. So it's been around a long time. So the Fibonacci sequence, or golden ratio, is really a common mathematical ratio found in nature. And when used in design, it fosters organic and natural looking composition that is aesthetically pleasing to the eye. That's why I want to use it. So let me show you what I'm going to build. I'm calling this the Fibonacci table. So this is my design of the Fibonacci table. So when I decided to design this table, one of the neat features I wanted to include was some wide legs with an arc or arch cut into it, where it was several inches at the bottom and several inches at the top and thinner in the middle. So that was one of my components. Really, the next component I had was the only one, and was the starting point. It was going to be 28 inches tall. So with the Fibonacci ratio, it's either 1.618 or 0.618. So my starting point was 28 inches. That's going to be the height of my table. So I reduced that down by 0.618, and my next measurement I got was 17¼ inches. Well, so that's going to be the depth of my table. Also happens to be the width of the drawers. The next reduction down, 0.618 of 17¼ I get 10¾ That's going to be the width of the bottom drawer. Now I have 3 drawers in here, and so each one of those is smaller by the amount of the golden ratio. So the second drawer is 6½ inches, and the top drawer is 4 inches. There's all our Fibonacci ratio measurements for the components of my Fibonacci table. So let's get to building it. So I'm getting ready to cut out the legs, rough cut from the beech. So I've marked this. I need 28, so I'm cutting 2 rough pieces of 30 inches. So I'm cutting one cut across here for 60, and then I'll get 1, 2, 3, 4 legs 2 inches thick and I'll cut them ultimately to 3 inches wide, because I'll have a big arc in the legs. So I'm cutting the leg portion of the lumber to size, so I have to cut it off the big slab first to get it to size. Then I take it on the table saw and run it through the table saw, flipping it over to be able to get a piece cut wide enough for each of the 4 legs. So I take my leg blank over to my bandsaw and I cut the arch into it so I can prepare for the legs. So this is a 3-inch wide by 2 inches with a 1½ inch depth arch. Then I'll take my mahogany and cut it to size for the top. Taking the mahogany and I'm splitting it on the bandsaw for drawer fronts for each of the drawers. Okay, so here's where you are in the Carcass Construction for our Fibonacci chest. So I took this 2-inch thickness, 10½ inch wide piece of beech, and I resawed it to 1 inch thick. So once I got to 1 inch thick, I took it over here to my planer, put it on thickness planer to make it 3/4 of an inch. So after I got it to 3/4 of an inch, came over here and started gluing up my panels. So that's what we have now. Then we're making panels for the sides and the back. It'll be 3/4 of an inch thick. So you can see I'm doing a little planing. This is the top. So when you have these seams, you're trying to get them smooth. Just run your hand across that. Put a little chalk mark where you feel unevenness. That way you know when you remove the chalk, you've got it smooth as well. All right, with that, let's get back to work. So these are my drawer box frames, and so I glued a little piece on here so I can use this to attach to the back leg and to serve as a drawer stop. So that'll be what that's for. So we got that on this other one as well. So we got 2 more to go. Okay, here I am trimming the pieces to the 2 side panels and the back panel to size. Okay, I got a mark here, here, and down here for my biscuits. So this will cut. Here's a dry fit before I put in the drawer slide frames. I've lowered this down, the points are down here. Got this square to the corner, I got a clamp there and there. And now we should be able to get this. So one hit will do it. Oh yeah, that's even perfect. Left the little bit point right there. These are the brad points. Let me show you the divots it made. So there's 1, and there's 2 and 3. So now we have to come in there with our brad point bits, drill a hole. The holes to these, I drilled those. Now let's see if we have a fit. Hey, perfect. Front is flush. This is offset because the back panel goes in there. This is the side panel, and I'm gluing in the dowels into the side panel. That actually letting them dry before I glue in the drawer box frames. So I got all my clamping done. I have 3 on the back and 3 on the front. That helps squeeze this enough, so we're gluing this left side right now. We'll let that dry an hour, and then we can move on to the next step. Now it's time to cut the top to size. The long sides are easy, but the other side I have to put on my straight cut jig to be able to get it nice and straight. Then comes everybody's favorite, sanding and sanding and sanding until smooth. So on my top, I wanted a little special feature. I wanted to have a round over and completely round on the edge, which means the top and bottom both needed to be rounded over. He has a little more advanced routing table than I do, so that's where I went. And this makes it for a lot easier, smoother. Now I'm taking my top and rounded the edges, so I wanted it to be round from the bottom to the top to soften the curve line rather than being real chunky. Went ahead and stained these. I wanted to see what they look like, so I'm really excited about this color, the way this mahogany has turned out. Okay, so I made some sample drawer hole pulls, and the square holes, all uniformly 4 inches, appear to be favored by my wife and myself. Originally, what I had cut in these curves originally was that the curve would match the legs, and the width of the opening was going to be the height of the drawer. So you had 4 inches, 6.5 and 10 3/4. This was 1.5 inches because that was the same measurement that I cut in on the legs, the same 1.5 inches from the edge. That just appeared to be too big. It just looked a little awkward. The hole looked a little big. But leave a comment below which one of those you prefer. I even considered making some mahogany drawer pulls that you wouldn't have any holes at all. Would like your comment on that. Sure that I cut all of my drawer openings the same exact width and all centered at the same time. I'm going to cut all 3 of them together. So make sure I have my alignment right on one spot. I cut the one edge of the opening. Then I have to move the 3 drawer panel over to cut the outside edge on the other side. And once I make that cut over there, then I can release it from the clamp and hog out the rest of it. Here's a few shots of the table with dry fitting and mock-up for drawer fronts. So we used a Minwax gunstock stain for our mahogany, and here's one more picture of a dry fit. So now I'm prepared to assemble the back. Since this span's going to be a little over 17 inches, we want to allow for wood movement. And so we've cut our panel about 1/8 of an inch short of this span. So we're actually going to suspend this or attach this to the frame just like we would a top. So we're going to use the figure 8 fasteners. So I have my spots marked where I'm going to drill the inserts for those, and these guys will insert like here, and we'll clamp the panel in here and attach it from the inside. Okay, so now we have our back panel screwed in, and you can see we have this 1/8 inch crack right here. This side has a little tiny one, but not to worry about it. What we're going to do is now take a piece of trim and we're going to glue it to this leg. Then we'll come in with our plane and plane this flat to the leg, or parallel to the leg. And therefore we'll just have this little bit of reveal on this angle for the back thing, and you won't even be able to see the crack. So here's a couple shots of the drawers after I've stained them and put a coat of finish on them. So you can see the green just as popped on this. It's just beautiful color from this mahogany. Enjoyed our Fibonacci table. Give us a thumbs up if you found this interesting and maybe you learned something. Hey, if you want to see more of our builds, be sure and subscribe down below. And as usual, come back and see us real soon.